Hello everyone, Todd Schmink here. And today I'm going to be going over a little bit about how to visualize what you want so that you'll know it when you see it. So, one of the common tools I often use working with individuals in helping them to stage where they want to go, what their goals are, what they want to focus on, and even better is when they believe that that direction is out of reach, or perhaps they don't even know. They're not what's sure what the next step. How do I do this? How do I even put this all together? Well, there is something called manifestation. It's definitely out there. I think there's a book called The Power of Now. There's a few other books. Actually, there's quite a few of books out there which talk about manifestation. And that sometimes comes into sessions when I'm working with others, or even when I'm in conversation in the general public. And I go, oh yeah, I'm trying to manifest this in my life. Well, I often ask, what does that even mean? What does it mean to manifest something in your life? And for a lot of people, they have this conception of, as long as I think about it, as long as it's in the back of my mind, then it'll just show up in my life. And I always just find it interesting that, basically I ask them, how's it working for you? And they're like, it's not happening and I'm frustrated. So what I like to do then is to go a little, press into this concept, because I think the concept itself is misunderstood. If I sit on my couch and I think about the things that I want to have in my life, the law of attraction, if I try to bring these things to me, if I'm not in action, these things most likely are not going to happen. Now, being in action doesn't mean I physically have to go do things, but it does mean I have to change my perspective. I have to change how I'm seeing things. What my filters are. So can I change the way that what I'm looking for? So one of the big things I love to do is have somebody visualize what that would even look like. So I'm going to give you an example of a couple that I worked with, and I'm pulling a little bit from different groups that I did work with and making it into just one story so that it's easier for you to understand. So imagine a couple comes in and they sit down. They have a home that they live in. They want to get out of this home, and they want to be able to, there's a job coming up. The house is not worth as much as they would like. It doesn't have any curb appeal. That means just standing from the outside of the house, it really doesn't have any flash, nothing that really draws people towards it. They realized that they needed to up this in order to be able to move, in order to be able to sell their house. And they were hoping to be able to do so by August or September. So when I was working with them, it was early in the year, probably February. So what I had them do is I had them go home that week and actually find a picture of what their front yard, what they would really want their front yard to look like. It could be anything. And they did this. They went home, they went on different websites, Home Shopping Network, they searched around for stock photography, and eventually they settled on one particular photograph. It had red maple trees in the front yard, off-centered, a particular type of paving stone, a different way of it. They just had as much detail as they could, lots of detail, more than they could ever actually imagine that they would be able to afford. Now, the other thing too is they only had a limited budget to be able to do this. They said, oh, we only have about $1,500, maybe $2,000 that we could put into this, but it would be even better because we don't know what the costs of traveling, moving, what we're going to need to buy in a new home. And so they were really trying to be very conservative. So I had them bring this picture in. And so what are the common features in this? Out of all the photographs that you have, which one of these photographs actually, out of all of the photographs, have the same elements? Those are the things we want to look for. So after a discussion, they settled on one photograph. So what I had them do is I had them take a picture of that photo, put it on their phones. They took a snapshot with their phones. Most of our phones have, of course, that camera feature. And so they had it on their phone. Now the other thing I had them do was take a larger version of that photograph, and they put it on the refrigerator. They put it in the bathroom where they were brushing their teeth. They put it just outside their shower. They put it in 5 or 6 places. They even had it taped in their car, in the dash in their car. They thought this was a little strange at first, but I said, well, what we want to do is we want to get past your filter of not looking for those things that you actually want in your life. So it's the creative visualization, projecting into the future what you would like to see happen, giving it a somewhat of a timeline, and I said, let's just play with this and see what happens. Now, of course, we were working on other things as well because they were under a lot of stress for a lot of challenges for moving from where they were to where they wanted to go, but I said, let's just keep this running in the background. Now, the most amazing thing, or things, began to happen. The most wonderful things began to happen for this couple. Well, remember I said this is a compilation of a few of them. So, what would happen is they had this picture in the back of their mind. They had the physical, tangible picture in front of them they kept referring to. And little things began to happen. So for instance, when the gentleman was actually at Lowe's, he was there to buy other supplies. They needed light bulbs, they needed a new doorknob, there was a couple things he was there to look for. But he thought, well, I wonder if there's anything around here that would fit that picture. And he actually pulled out his cell phone, looked at the picture, and he's like, oh, well, let's go browse and see what they have here. And so he wandered off into the back section of Lowe's. There was a clearance area, and he figured, well, I might as well just check it, because maybe they'll have something there. When he was there, lo and behold, he actually found they had an entire pallet. Now, some of them were broken, but they were actually discounted at $1 per paver. And they were close to. They weren't exactly what they wanted from their original picture, but they were pretty close, and they were $1 each. So the price was right, and it actually matched closely what he was visualizing, what they had visualized, and the actual picture that they had. So he picked them up, and they figured they needed about 120 of them, so for $120 he left Lowe's not only with the light bulbs that he was actually there looking for, but he left with 120 pavers, more than they actually needed for the job. They ended up only using 100 of these pavers, and these pavers looked very similar to what it was that they wanted for their front yard. So we're up to $120. And then remember, they're trying to stay below $1,500, $2,000, if not even less than that. So they have the pavers. He wouldn't have been necessarily looking for those. He would have just been doing his daily routine. He would have gone to Lowe's. He would have found his light bulbs, the wires, the doorknob that he needed, and he would have came home. That would have been it. Totally would have missed out. So by putting this in his mind, he was actually able to see something there that he would not necessarily have seen before. Now, another example of this is that the wife was actually going to Whole Foods to do whatever, grab her groceries. On her way in, she grabs the cart, she's pushing a cart to go in and get her groceries, and she glances off to the left-hand side and she sees red maple trees, the Japanese maple trees that are sitting right there. It just happened that one of the local nurseries had made a deal with Whole Foods, dropped off a group of these maple trees, and they were each going for $29.99, so $30 each. Lo and behold, there they are. Once again, they would have been there. She was doing a normal thing, she was doing a normal routine. She happened to have glanced at that picture before she got out of the car. She had been thinking about it. Now this is March or April at this point. She happened to have it in the back of her mind because she keeps reminding herself with those pictures. And there she saw it. There it was. So she picked up 2 of them. This is exactly what they wanted for the picture. Now, of course, they're small. They're not exactly the large trees that they had envisioned in their actual picture, but it is the beginning of that. And it will take a little while. Those will grow, and eventually that front yard will have those trees looking very much like that. Now, another thing is that there was an area where they had grass. The grass wasn't doing very well, so they were looking for cheap seed or even the grass which can just roll out and you can just stick it where you need to. And the gentleman worked in a building where they were actually doing just that. They were putting in brand new grass. They were rolling out new grass. They happened to have, they were finished. He saw that they had 6 or 7 of these carpets of grass. And he said, hey, what are you going to do with those? And the worker's like, oh, we don't need them. They're just going to go into the trash. And he's like, well, could you load them in the back of my car? And they did so. So he ends up leaving with these rolls of grass, 7 of them, for free. Now he was able to use those to edge around his new pavers, and he kind of situated them where he'd like to see them. Now the pavers weren't in just yet, but he did grab the grass, he did keep it wet, and when the time came to actually get somebody to finish the work, they were able to do so. They were able to use that. They filled in a few other places with 1 bag of seed and was able to have the picture. They were able to meet what they were looking for in their picture. Now there's a few other small examples. There was a statue that was in the picture, and they did find a statue and it happened to be half off. It wasn't the great deal like the other ones had been, but they were slowly over the course of 4 months, because in the back of their mind they were aware, they were looking for these things, they were able to find these things, and before they knew it, this became a reality. Now the wild thing is that by May, I believe, and towards the end of May, they had collected a bunch of things that were in their garage, and they had only spent roughly $400 for all the pieces that they had found, all the things that they had needed. So now they had a little bit of extra cash. They were well under budget, and so they simply hired a landscaper to come in and finish off the rest. They put the pavers down exactly how they wanted. They were able to have the trees put in where they needed. They were able to get an extra thing of mulch, which also matched the picture itself. And before they knew it, by the beginning or the middle of June, their yard had been upgraded. This was a task they had actually thought would be impossible. This was a task that they didn't even think $2,000 would be able to cover. Yet, when all was said and done, they spent $850, or roughly they're close to $850. $850, leaving them well under their budget, leaving them with that extra amount of money that they had been hoping for, and the visualization that they had made for themselves in their front yard had apparently come true for them. So this is what I mean by the law of attraction. This is what I think that they are actually pointing to when it comes to the law of attraction, or the rules of manifestation, bringing things into your life. It's simply a shift in your perspective, where you're actually sitting, what you're actually looking for. If they wouldn't have done this exercise, they would have continued with the rule, we're never going to find what we're looking for. And they would have never found what they were looking for. But in simply using a small example, simply putting out a picture, dreaming a little bit, finding a picture, even though it was well outside. And remember, the picture that they found and how their yard actually looked were not exactly the same. They would have definitely needed to pay a lot of money to have exactly what that picture was, if they wanted to do it all at once. They had some time and were able to take their time and just wait for things to show up. And because they had the open mind, because they were looking for these pieces, they were able to make this happen. So I invite you, when it comes to an area of your life where you want something like this to occur, find a picture, write out a story, put in the details. Then, and I believe the picture works better than writing. If you write it out, that's absolutely works just fine. But see if you can find a picture which will symbolically represent what it was you were writing, because you'll be able to visualize that, you'll be able to see it, and then you'll be able to find what you're looking for as you move through time and your life. And as those things pop up, you'll be able to pick this, you'll be able to pick that. I myself did something very similar when it came to actually designing the look and feel of the office that I work out of on the east side of Providence, and it worked for me as well. So this is a technique which can help you to visualize, especially the things that you're looking for in your external world, to have happen. It's not necessarily the power of me sitting here drawing all these things to me. It doesn't work like that, but it does give us the ability to see the opportunities when they arise versus completely ignoring them. If we hadn't done this exercise, the woman would have probably gotten out of her car, grabbed her cart, gone into Whole Foods, and completely bypassed the trees that were sitting right there for $30 each. Normally those trees are like 3-4 times that amount. If the other gentleman who went to Lowe's would have not had that picture, he would have just gone inside of Lowe's, he would have gone in, got his light bulbs, he would have got the handle and whatever hinge or whatever items he needed, he would have left. He never would have taken the moment to just go back and glance at the clearance, and he never would have found those pavers. So it definitely comes down to the mindset and what you're looking for. We often say to ourselves, what we see is what we get, but I actually think a lot of times it's the other way around. It's what we get, it's what we believe, it's what our rules and our tools are that influence what we see, what we look for. So it's not what you see is what you get, it's more often than not what you get is what you see. So I invite you to dream with this. Put this out on paper, find a picture that matches what you're looking for, and see what happens. By the way, this couple, when they were complete with all this, were able to sell their home by the end of July. I believe they closed in August, well ahead of their September deadline, and were able to move on with their lives. I hope that you have the same success in whatever it is that you work with. My name is Todd Schmink, and I hope you enjoyed this talk.